In this video, I'm going to show you how to punctuate citations that follow the author and year system, which is by far where most punctuation mistakes in any paper can be found. Hello, my name is Martin O'Brien, and the purpose of my channel is to help students learn the skills to do great research. And yes, writing is one of those skills. As I mentioned in a previous video, there are two sets of rules that will determine how we punctuate citations. That is, normal English punctuation rules and specific citation style rules. In this video, I will only talk about how to punctuate citations that follow the author and year system, and I'll also show you examples when English punctuation rules are violated. For the author and year system, how citations are punctuated will depend on the following three factors. I will talk about each one in more detail. Number one, how to punctuate a citation depends on whether the citation is part of a sentence or not. When a citation is part of a sentence, only the year of publication is placed within parentheses. And when a citation only contains one author, there is never a comma or period placed between the author and year, but there is always a space needed between the author and year. In the case of two co-authors, we need to use either and or the ampersand, depending on the citation style we're following. The ampersand is Latin for and. Again, no comma or period should be placed after the authors, but one space should be placed between the authors and year. For three or more co-authors, we use the family name of the first author followed by et al. Et alia is Latin for and others, and alia is abbreviated to al and should be followed by a period. Because et al is a non-English word, it needs to be italicized. The period is also italicized. Again, there is no comma required between authors and year, but one space is required. To summarize, when a citation is part of a sentence, no comma is required. A space is required between author and year, and only the year is placed within parentheses. Sometimes we may prefer not to make the citation part of the sentence. In that situation, both the author and year are placed within parentheses, and this is the same whether the source is co-authored by one, two, or more co-authors. After the author's name, you can add a comma or not, depending on the citation style you're following. A space is needed between the author and year, and very importantly, a period is required after the closing parenthesis. The period should never be inserted before the opening parenthesis or within the parentheses. To summarize, when a citation is not part of a sentence, a comma may or may not be required. In addition, a space is required between an author and year. Both the author and year must be placed within parentheses, and a period is placed after the closing parenthesis. Number two, how to punctuate a citation depends on the number of co-authors of the source. This only relates to when the citation comes at the end of a sentence. I will talk about citations with one author, two co-authors, and three or more co-authors separately. This is how a citation should appear at the end of a sentence with one author. This is all you need to memorize. Unfortunately, I regularly see the following variations in students' papers. This is how a citation should appear at the end of a sentence with two co-authors. Here you can see the use of the ampersand. We usually use the ampersand when a citation is not part of a sentence. Here are a few more examples of what not to do. If there are three or more co-authors, the citation should look like this. Again, here are examples of citations containing three or more co-authors that have not been punctuated correctly. And finally, number three, How to punctuate a citation depends on the number of sources cited together. I'm going to show examples of this when we have two sources together at the beginning, middle, or end of a sentence. Here we have two citations at the beginning of a sentence. The only thing new here is that we use "and" to connect the two citations and not the ampersand. In the case of two or more citations occurring in the middle of a sentence, all citations are placed within parentheses, and we use a semicolon to separate citations. And when we have two or more citations at the end of a sentence, again you can see that a semicolon is used to separate the citations. All citations are placed within parentheses, and a period is required at the end of the sentence. So how we punctuate multiple citations that come in the middle and at the end of a sentence is the same, except a period is required at the end of a sentence. And here are some of the common punctuation mistakes, so please try to avoid these. Finally, you may have the following question: how do we decide the order to list multiple citations in a sentence? Those details should be mentioned in the citation style guidelines you are following. If not mentioned, then you can sort citations alphabetically, chronologically, or by the order of importance. Whichever one you choose, be consistent throughout the paper. Also, note that how we punctuate a citation in the body of a paper, for example in the introduction section, is not affected by the type of publication cited. However, when listing the citations in the reference section, the information that we need to provide for each type of publication can differ a lot, and that is a topic for a separate video. To recap, punctuating citations correctly is very easy once you've memorized a few simple rules. Then apply those rules consistently across each piece of writing you do. Thanks for watching.